CP. Comboios de Portugal. EPA. CP. English. Trains of Portugal is a state-owned company which operates freight and passenger trains in Portugal. Before June 2009, CP stood for Caminhos de Ferro Portugueses. English. Portuguese Railways. Although the company has been using its current designation as a brand name since 2004. History. On 28 October 1856 the first railway line was inaugurated in Portugal, between Lisbon and Carregado. The Companhia dos Caminhos de Ferro Portugueses was born. The network was gradually expanded both south of the Tagus and to the north of the country, as well as in the metropolitan areas of Lisbon and Porto and to Spain. During the second half of the 20th century, much of CP's rolling stock was built in Portugal by Sorafame, notably carriages with stainless steel bodywork. Gradually, electrification was put in place for a little less than half the network. In 1975, the company was nationalized, and its name was shortened to CP. A plan to finally connect all the district capitals by a fully electrified double line was to be implemented from 2010. Part of this plan is based on the Swiss Rail 2000 model. As of 2012, the Portuguese rail system is facing the threat of considerable contraction due to spending cuts by the Portuguese government. The Vuga line is now the only narrow-gauge line left in operation. It is also slated for closure. Infrastructure. The infrastructure of the Portuguese network is managed by Infraestruturas de Portugal, EP, usually abbreviated to IP. Portuguese railway network extent. Broad gauge, 1,668 mm. 5 feet 5 and 21/30 seconds in. 2,603 kilometers. 1,617 miles. 1,351 kilometers. 839 miles. Electrified at 25 kV 50 Hz AC and 25 kilometers. 16 miles. At 1.5 kV DC. Narrow gauge. Meter gauge. 1,000 mm. 3 feet 3 and 3/8 in. 188 kilometers. 117 miles. Not electrified. The maximum extent of 3,592 kilometers, 2,232 miles, was reached in 1949. But in the late 1980s and early 1990s some lines were shortened and some totally closed. Organization. CP is split into 4 divisions. CP Longo Curso, long-distance mainline services. Alpha Pendula, Intercidades and international trains. CP Regional, regional services. Interregional and regional. CP Lisboa, Lisbon's suburban network. CP Porto, Porto's suburban network. Services. CP offers the following types of trains. International. IN is the service that connects Portugal and Spain. 1 reaches France. These are the Sud Express. Lisbon, Irún, Henday. The Lusitania. Lisbon, Madrid. And the Celta. Porto, Vigo. Both Sud Express and Lusitania are night trains that run as Tren Hotel. Hotel train. Alpha Pendula. AP is the fastest service, whose speeds can reach 220 km per hour. This service runs from Lisbon to either Porto, Braga or Guimarães, passing through Coimbra, Aveiro and Porto, or between Porto and Faro. Intercidades. IC is a fast long-distance service whose speeds can reach 200 km per hour. All IC services, apart from the Beja shuttle, run from Lisbon to either Porto, Braga, Guimarães, Garda, Covila or Évora, with connection at Casabranca to Beja, serving the majority of the Portuguese regions. Interregional (IR) is a medium-distance service which stops only at the main stations. Runs mainly on the routes Porto Viana de Castelo Valença, Minho Line, Porto Arequipe Gua Pocinho, Douro Line, Lisbon Caldas da Rainha Leiria Coimbra, West Line, and Lisbon Tomar, North Line. Services are operated by the same trains as regional service. Regional R is CP's local service, stopping at all stations out of the Lisbon and Porto suburban areas. Urbano U is the CP's suburban service in the regions of Lisbon and Porto and in the Coimbra Figueira da Foz line. The network, CP's flagship service, introduced in 1999, is the Alfa Pendula, which operates between Braga, Porto, Lisbon, Faro, at a top speed of 220 km per hour, 138 miles per hour, with Fiat Siemens tilting trains. As of 2006, CP's network reaches most of the country. CP inaugurated new trains in suburban service in the 1990s. Lines, routes: Linha de Minho, Ramal de Braga, Linha de Guimarães, Linha de Lixos, freight only, Linha de Douro, Linha de Norte, Linha de Vale de Vuga, partially closed. Last 1000 mm gauge line, Linha da Beira Alta, Ramal da Lousa, track lifted to allow the construction of the Metro Mondego. Construction stopped due to lack of money. Ramal de Alfarrolhos, Linha do Oeste, Ramal de Lurical, freight only, Ramal de Tomar, Linha da Beira Baixa, Linha de Leste, freight only, except a twice-a-week service to Porto Alegre from Entroncamento. Linha de Vendas Novas, freight only, Linha da Matinha, freight only, Linha do Cintura, Linha do Sintra, Linha de Cascais, Linha do Alentejo, closed between Bejar and Urique, freight only from Urique to Funchera, Linha do Évora, only opened between Casabranca and Évora, Ramal Neves Corvo, freight only, Linha do Sul, Linha do Sines, freight only, Linha do Algarve, former lines, Ramal da Figueira da Foz, closed January 2009, Linha do Évora, closed between Évora and Vila Viçosa, Ramal do Porto Alegre Estacão, Ramal de Moura, Ramal de Moura, Ramal do Estádio Nacional, Linha de Minho, between Valença and Monção, Linha da Beira Baixa, between Covilhã and Garda, Linha de Douro, between Pocinho and Barca d'Alva, Ramal de Caçares, closed August 2012, Linha da Pova, meter gauge line, transformed into Porto Metro between 2001 and 2002, Linha de Guimarães, meter gauge line, between Senhora da Hora and Trofa, Linha de Famalicão, meter gauge line, Linha de Corgo, meter gauge line, closed 2009, Linha de Dão, meter gauge line, closed 1988, Linha do Saba, meter gauge line, closed 1988, Linha do Sintra, La Manjit line, closed 1877, Linha de Tâmega, meter gauge line, closed 2009, Linha de Torres Vedras, La Manjit line, closed 1877, Linha de Tua, meter gauge line, closed 2009. Apart from the Metro de Mirandela, Ramal de Viseu, meter gauge line, closed 1990. Passenger rolling stock. Comboios de Portugal utilizes the following rolling stock and commercial products. Major stations: Lisbon, Cais de Sodré for local trains from Lisbon to Cascais. Oriente, for trains to the north and to the Algarve. Rocio, for local trains to Sintra. Santa Apollonia, for trains to the north and to Spain. Porto, Campana, Porto's principal station, including use by Alfa Pendula high-speed trains. São Bento, city centre terminus, for local services, northbound and Douro line trains. Other. Faro. See also. History of rail transport in Portugal. Iberian gauge, narrow gauge railways in Portugal. National Railway Museum, Portugal. Rail transport in Portugal. High-speed rail in Portugal. Notes. CP official website. Refer official website. OTLIS, the Consortium of Transport Operators in Lisbon region. CP official website. Timeline of Portuguese railway history.